Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Thank you to all of our online viewers joining us today. My name is Azra Celadini, and I'm a technical account manager here at SOCRadar Cyber Intelligence. I'm very excited to introduce today's presentation, Understanding Deep and Dark Web Threats from SOC Perspective. In this webinar, our speakers will discuss how to understand and respond to specific deep and dark web threats facing different industries. SOCRadar presenters for today's session are Ertuğrul Kara, VP Growth and Product Marketing, Reshid Ramadan, our Technical Account Manager. Before we start, please note that all attendees are in listen-only mode. For any questions you might have for our presenters, you can submit them in the Q&A window anytime during the webinar. At the end of the session, we'll go through all the questions submitted, and please note that all the questions you submit will be viewed only by the presenters. If you'd like to be privately contacted by our team after the session, please indicate that in your question. Now, this webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to all attendees early next week. Lastly, SOCRadar has a community edition with limited but useful features. To see SOCRadar digital risk protection and threat intelligence platform in action, and to get alerted for specific digital risk and threats, you can visit our website, SOCRadar.io, and register for free. So now, with no further delay, I'll go ahead and pass the mic to our first presenter, Ertuğrul, to kick off today's session. Ertuğrul, please take it away.
All right. Thank you, Azra. Thank you, everyone who is attending our webinar today. My name is Ertuğrul. I am the VP for Growth and Product Marketing here at SOCRadar. A little bit background information. I have a major in aerospace engineering, and I joined SOCRadar back in June 2019. I have about 10 years of experience in cybersecurity, of course, depending on how you count it. And my special focus is on the value proposition and content strategy for fast-growing cybersecurity startups. With all, I will pass it on to next presenter, Reshid.
Hello, everybody. This is Reshid. My education is in economics, but my expertise is in cyber fraud. And I'm currently an account manager at SOCRadar, and I'm actually a new member of the team here as well, and looking forward to engaging with you guys. Thank you. Ertuğrul.
Okay, so let's start with sources. We all know that a significant portion of the dark web offerings are highly relevant for the cybersecurity domain in anticipating and preventing attacks, such as information about zero-day exploits, stolen data sets with login information, or botnets available for hire. So before we deep dive, there's a couple of things regarding the definitions that I just wanted to write at the beginning, defined from SOCRadar perspective. You can find quite a few definitions for deep and dark web, many of which are all right in different ways. Here at SOCRadar, when talking about deep and dark web, certainly they're not the same thing. However, the threats and ways to respond from SOC perspective looks very similar. That's why in the next 40 minutes, you will not see a sharp line between these. So today, when we talk about deep and dark web, we will ignore the hype and focus on the risks it creates and show you some real-world examples. What we are talking about is the platforms like underground forums, hacker forums, black markets, a darknet, Tar network, and chatter platforms like IRC or ICQ, that all kinds of cyber criminal activity is going on, where hackers hang out and trade. Clearly, the dark web provides an anonymous environment in which anyone can operate. And not surprisingly, nation-state APT groups and actors are utilizing dark web to conduct intelligence collection and source development, as well as espionage, exploit development, financial gain, or sometimes disinformation operations. So financial gain is especially valid objective for the countries like North Korea, and which is facing extreme economic sanctions. Okay, here's an interesting one. It's noticeable that during the COVID-19 pandemic, dark web marketplace numbers increased significantly. So this data is taken from Tor metrics, and it shows that sites with the .onion extension, so sites within the Onion network, more than doubled between March 2020 and November 2020. So it's obvious that cyber criminals is taking advantage of any opportunity that opens up to cause chaos or steal data or extort money. So working from home trend is such an opportunity they were waiting for. And the dark web gives those fraudsters a way to hide their illegal activities. So what are the threats observed on the deep and dark web shared by these threat actors? And how can they be aligned to existing SOC workflows and perspective? So basically, there are numerous risks and threats out there that could impact our business. And they are often asymmetric and chaotic. However, as SOC teams, it's expected from us to take relevant actions. We need to put them in order and prioritize, basically. Whether you are using a threat intelligence tool or you are doing the monitoring with in-house resources, the first thing to do is to know what to monitor. So which keywords, what sources, etc. So what we observed here at SOCRadar while talking to many of our customers is the SOC analysts are already overwhelmed with routine tasks and false positive elimination of SIEM alerts. No need to add more false positives down to the list. For that, now we are going to talk about how the threat monitoring on deep and dark web can be aligned with the workflows of SOC teams, and then continue with which threats can have higher priority for specific industries. Okay, so first one is vulnerability team perspective. So sites on the dark web are marketplaces for emerging vulnerability threats and exploits. A significant portion of vulnerabilities are observed to be disclosed on the dark web before being published in the NVD, or National Vulnerability Database. So newly identified vulnerabilities or exploits represent significant opportunities for threat actors. And these attack methods are discussed, developed, and sold, traded in dark web forums and underground marketplaces. So we know that the main challenge for vulnerability teams is prioritization of the remediation efforts. So if you be better informed on the newly discussed exploits whenever they appear, you will keep being one step ahead. Second group consuming the threat intelligence from dark web is the incident response team. So IR teams are available to support companies responding to various types of incidents and to make your cybersecurity posture more resilient. So data breaches are the nightmares of all of us, many security teams, and dark web is oftentimes used to buy and sell illegally obtained data, such as credit cards, financial information, credentials, or other sensitive corporate information. So it can be even an illegal access method to the internal corporate sources. So to decrease the damage and losses, it's essential for incident responders to monitor black markets and underground forums in a continuous manner. So the third is the SOC SIEM analysts. Deep and dark web sources are great places to obtain intelligence, such as TTPs, so tactics, techniques, and procedures directly from attackers. One can easily identify stolen assets and learn who and how threat actors are targeting. But different from the others, we have just mentioned, it would be much more useful to take advantage of a tool that will aggregate, filter, and analyze the massive data for you. It's resource intensive that only machines can handle properly, with the tuning support of humans probably. SOCRadar's customers have threat host, threat investigation, and threat hunting tool in place for this. And towards the end of the webinar, Rashid may walk you through. And the last one to benefit from dark web monitoring are, of course, CISOs, security leaders. More than ever, threat actors are sharing and exchanging information on deep and dark web. This can have a great impact on your enterprise assets and reputation. So behind the cover of anonymity, there are threats like zero-day vulnerabilities, new phishing tools, new exploits, and a wide collection of malware. Or it can be a DDoS attack plan against your industry or countries of operation. Lastly, there can be important sensitive information regarding to your third-party companies and supply chain partners in your business ecosystem or industry in large. So it's important to know their existence as a security leader to take strategic actions towards a more resilient cyber security posture. So speaking about the industries, let's talk more on the deep and dark web threats for specific industries. As SOCRadar, we continuously analyze massive data every day collected from these sources and conduct continuous analysis on the findings to let our customers know the threats before it's happening. So based on our experience, we can easily say that some industries are affected more often than others, which is not actually surprising. For instance, the born to digital industries facing consumers like e-commerce. The fact that credential stuffing economy is booming, threat actors are heavily developing and sharing tools like account checkers, or config files, and combo lists. It seems to continue since we do not see any rush to multi-factor authentication or stopping of password reuse on the consumer end. DDoS is distributed denial of service attacks are the popular threats for the industry as well. To better protect their brand, SOC teams of e-commerce platforms need to monitor dark web proactively. So here it's better to mention a bad response practice for this industry. So some industry players think it's not a prioritization to protect the credentials of customers, since it is a result of password reuse issue across different platforms. That's actually right in one perspective. However, from digital risk protection perspective, there are a couple of significant risks. First, we see that this is harmful for brand reputation, since the customers are result-oriented and not fully technical aware of cybersecurity. And the media oftentimes prefer to use the word hacked in the headlines, as you know. From security professional perspective, this is not hacking, but it does not matter. So second is a minor one, but worth considering while designing your cybersecurity strategy. From the attacker's perspective, if a brand name appears every day in the forum headlines, it's a high signal that they are not taking enough precautions for their cyber infrastructure. So this is kind of a PR thing, and dark web appearance should not be overlooked, should be handled properly from a brand protection perspective. Then it's much easier to prevent the serious results of financial loss. So let's move on to the second industry. So second industry that's affected heavily by dark web businesses is not surprisingly finance. So MasterCard security research reported that as many as 460,000 attack attempts on a typical day we have seen for finance industry in 2019. That's a huge number. As they battle against online adversaries and some of the time, sometimes nation-state-backed APT groups, like most industries, financial cybersecurity teams are burdened with processing an overwhelming and varied amount, a variety of threat data, trying to separate noise from real threats, and try to contextualize data into actionable intelligence. And on this slide now, some of the most common forms of threats are listed against financial institutions, and some specific shops and black markets have been established in recent years for threats relevant to finance. That's what we monitored here at SOCRadar. So these markets need to be monitored in an automated manner, since the exposed information appearing in these sources can often be an early indicator of a more extensive data breach. So speaking of the sources, in recent years, we at SOCRadar had some observations on increasing usage of chatters and mobile communication apps as well. There is actually no one dark web source is kinda tearing apart. There are now specific black markets for stealer logs, for example, or selling stolen credit cards or remote access. So the data source portfolio for threat intelligence data collection needs to be beyond traditional hacking firms. It's important to understand that the sources are dynamically changing, so we all need to be up to date on which sources are currently popular among threat actors. Here comes our observation as SOCRadar. So while the underground forums are home to some general discussions, it's the instant messaging channels where the really serious conversations on the criminal activity and the planning take place. So these are being used heavily by APT groups as well. What we see here is the platforms like Discord, ICQ, Telegram, and chatters like Jabber. So I want to talk a little bit about these sources of data, and want to just give an idea on what threats can be monitored on these sources. Discord is originally a platform for in-game communication and popular among teenagers, especially the gamers. And as you may know, gaming and cybersecurity industry are going hand to hand most of the time. But now, since it provides anonymity, it started to be used by threat actors. And we observe Discord to be used for fraudulent method sharing and stolen credit card information. And when we look at Jabber and also ICQ, so they are commonly used especially by Russian-speaking threat actors and former Soviet Union countries. ICQ used to be popular before 2012. However, its popularity dropped in English-speaking community since. And Jabber is preferred instant messaging platform for Russian-speaking threat actors and Russian elite cyber criminals. So Telegram is probably the most popular among the among the cybersecurity people. So cyber criminals are increasingly setting up marketplaces with user friendliness and ease of access in mind. So this way, they lower the barrier of entry into cybercrime. So Telegram serves for this target very well. It's commonly used, and it has lots of attractive features from encryption to cybercrime, bot automation even. So that's why underground hacking forums are kind of increasingly moving on to Telegram, mirroring some key functionalities over there. Also, one last note, once you spot these traffics, so this last note is for a special network security team. Once you spot these traffics on the internal network, it would be better to ask some questions because these may be some malicious traffic. All right, with this, now I will pass it on to Rashid. He will share some real-world snapshots from the shadows of the internet so that you can catch a glimpse of what flourishes there. So, Rashid.
Thank you, Arturo. So, so when we say dark web, actually, it creates an interesting impression, but everything is clear-cut. So let's have a look at one example. If we could just move on to this example. All right, so what we are seeing here in this screen is something that we commonly observe in the internet, in the dark web. And my other examples are actually very common examples as well. So here we're looking at somebody looking to hire capable talented hacker, right? So they're looking for hacking services. Hacking services are among the most attractive commodities in the underground market. It is possible to hire a hacker to target a person or an organization. And in this example, actually, this threat actor named Spectre123 is introducing themselves as a broker / an activist, which is an interesting twist. And then they then go on to mention what they need. So they are targeting governments, law enforcement, and military. And interestingly, they mention good causes as one of their purposes, since probably they are looking to hook hacktivists as well. And if you look at their description on top, they are describing themselves as a cyber activist of sorts as well. Another interesting point here is that this is actually a fairly new member of this community, but they seem to be active. They already have 27 posts. This threat actor could also be an APT group based on their interest. As you know, APT refers to threat actors that are organized and supported by nation states, and they are usually outsourcing sensitive hacking activities such as this one here. I'd also like to draw your attention to their profile on top. It's an Onion website, which gives them a degree of anonymity because of the use of Tor. And this is important since especially, if they are especially engaging in exchanging money, buying and selling in cryptocurrencies. And finally, I'd like to mention here that some of these forums are hard to get in. You need an invitation to join, and you need to establish some credibility. Some are easily viewable. You can join, but you can see what activity is going on. But some of them, you need an invitation to get in. All right, so let's have a look at another interesting example. So in this one here is network access for sale. Access for sale on the dark web is a generic term. It could be referring to software, exploits, credentials, or anything else that allows illicitly controlling one or more remote computers. In this example, we are seeing network access for sale in this Russian English-speaking forum. It seems that they are leveraging vulnerabilities of network appliances. Just have a look at how the post begins. They are talking about VPN access, Citrix, and AnyConnect. Criminals mostly selling access to industrial companies, professional service companies, finance, education, and IT. And these sectors actually comprise 58% of offers happening in the dark web, according to one research. So in most cases, this access is sold to other dark web criminals. They either develop an attack on business systems themselves or hire a team of more skilled hackers, as we have seen above, to do things like escalating network privileges and infecting critical machines in the victim's infrastructure with malware. This is actually very popular with ransomware operators, for which I have some examples in this presentation as well. And in this post here, they are posting revenues next to the companies just to give the buyers an idea about the size of the company. So just to give them, what they're looking at. The bidding starts at, you could see this down below. The bidding starts at $2,000, increasing up to $3,000, which is not seen in this slide, I guess. And another thing is, this is actually an old member of this community. They have been active since 2015. They don't have a lot of activity, but they seem to be a credible old member of this community. And have a look at a variety of industries as well. So when we hear a company being hacked in the news, it's probably the beginning points are somewhere here. You know, somebody buying this access and getting to that company that way. All right, so let's have a look at a ransomware example. Now, have you ever wondered why we have so many different strains of ransomware? So, I mean, when we say ransomware, there are actually very different types and very different groups, right? And also other question is, who creates them? Why do we have so many? And who are the people behind these these ransomwares? So here we are seeing how threat actors get organized, very much like a company, and collaborate to create software. So this is a Russian-speaking software. It actually belongs to a Russian-speaking post. It actually belongs to a famous ransomware group, the DarkSide ransomware group. Look at how actually they advertise themselves first, like, you know, establishing credibility, listing some news items about their work. And they're actually looking to hire talent in this post. So they are putting their reputation first. This is actually an example of the rising ransomware as a corporation trend. Cyber criminals made a lot of money using ransomware within the last couple of years. So the industry is booming. It's actually part of our daily lives now, right? I mean, even the people not in cybersecurity probably heard ransomware. So this also means that threat actors are attempting to become a reliable business. So they're looking for talent who can accomplish various development tasks for them, as in this example. Some even have dedicated support lines for their customers using their ransomware. So this could be ransomware as a service system as well. So if we move on to the next slide, which we did. Could you come back to the previous slide? No, the previous one. Right, this one. Yeah, so here they're talking about who they are looking for. I don't know if we have any Russian speakers in the audience, but they're listing who they are looking for and how the compensation scheme will work. You'll probably understanding the numbers, 25% to 10%, right? And in the next slide, they are actually listing whom they don't want. So they don't want pen testers, security firms, security services, etc. So they don't want that. And then they also list what type of software they will be providing and what type of skills they will be looking at. So, so here we are observing how an existing ransomware business is being maintained by looking for talent this way. So let's move on to the next example. This is also another example. Dark web is commonly used to share and sell exploits that could be used to target any organization. So in this example, this threat actor is selling a sophisticated exploit that is taking advantage of the zero-logon vulnerability in Windows 80 systems. So just to refresh your memory, this vulnerability allows a hacker to take control of a domain controller, including the root DC. There's actually a patch for this, but as you can see, sophisticated exploits are still available. So because there are probably still a lot of vulnerable systems to this. And have a look at how they advertise their system. So they are trying to detail how it's different than the existing strains of exploit codes. So they're advertising things like no need for a third-party library, or the fact that this is a remote execution code as opposed to a hash dump. So this is a common example that we observe. Let's have a look at a similar example. So here, this is another hacker for hire service advertisement. Somebody is looking for a C# coder to finalize ransomware. And this is going back to my previous example. Here we are observing how a new strain of ransomware is being developed. So this threat actor himself, he wrote some piece of the code, but he's not well versed in cryptology. So he is looking for that skill. And as you can see, they're using Jabber and Telegram, popular channels that Ertuğrul has mentioned before. So I think it's very cool to observe how something dangerous that will probably later hear in the news is being developed this way. So very simple, plain, people collaborating. I'd like to think as, when you need something, where do you go? You go to Google and type that service, right? And then look around who is providing that. So people come here for that, plain and simple, really. Let's have a look at another example, which is a little current. Here, actually, we are seeing the most common observed thing in the dark web: data leaks and dumps, right? This is how sensitive information is monetized in the cybercrime world. So somebody is selling water database with a lot of PI information, like last name, first name, phone number, email, and whatnot. So a lot of information, and which could be used for a phishing campaign or misinformation campaigns. Another point here is that the real life issues and the cyber world are increasingly intersecting. So think about what we are going through in the news today with issues like voter fraud or elections battling. So cybercrime is now becoming part of that discussion as well. So this is very common, things like network access for sale or credentials for sale or PII information in the specific example for sale are really the most observed examples in the dark web. Let's have a look at a similar example. So we talked about finance, which is one of the most affected industries in the dark web because of the money, right? So it's very common to see the actors trying to sell bank accounts, PayPal, clone cards, access to e-commerce platforms or popular other portals like Netflix, Amazon, and things like that. This is actually how most of fraud is committed now. So, in the past, it would be, somebody skimming your credit card and then making fraudulent purchases. But now, it's more diverse. There are more things that you can commit fraud with. So fraudulent credit card use or fraudulent purchases in e-commerce are becoming very popular here, and they're creating huge damages for these types of companies. And this is actually one of the places where SOCRadar shines. Fraud prevention is a huge use case for us. So our customers in finance or e-commerce, this is one of the top use cases that they benefit from. So let's have a look at another interesting example. So this is Genesis Market. It's a very famous black market. They sell bot data collected from victims of various Trojans. Now, Ertuğrul mentioned how it's becoming nice and shiny and user-friendly things in the black market. So look at this very well-designed website. Very easy to use, very slick interface. So Genesis Store is the biggest online underground market for stolen data. And so here they're listing, so here you can look for bot data from a specific website or a specific country, operating system, or browser. The interesting thing here is that the prices here are calculated automatically by the market itself using their algorithms. So the market itself is pricing the hackers' offerings here. Now, how can SOCRadar help? So now that we've seen these examples, and I kind of alluded to some points of how SOCRadar could help. So let me first briefly talk about how SOCRadar works. So SOCRadar uses automation and artificial intelligence to collect and analyze data from a wide variety of sources from the surface, deep, and dark web. So from social media, forums like we have seen, and other outlets. The platform's findings are vetted by human analysts to prevent noise and create actionable intelligence. So the output could be used by SOC teams, and also since it is producing feeds, indicators, it could also be used by the SOC machines like SIEM solutions as well. As a result, organizations can protect themselves against digital risks, such as impersonating domains or sensitive data leaks. So let's have a look at how SOCRadar, how the platform works for, what are the dark and deep web findings in the platform. So if you could move on to the next slide. SOCRadar divides deep and dark web findings, which is actually under its digital risk protection suite, into 6 breakdowns here. So black market, pay sites, IRC, Discord, Telegram, and Hackform. And I'll show you examples from some. So and this is actually a banking customer. Everything is blurred out, so sorry for that. But you could actually see for black market findings, these are results from botnet data, credentials from employees or customers to log into various subdomains in this system. If we could move on to the next one. So these are IRC findings. In IRC channels for finance industries, the most found thing is the credit cards for sale. So if you look at down the slide, you can see an American Express card with all of its details captured in an IRC chat that is for sale, right? So let's have a look at another tab here. So moving on to hack forum findings. So these are some findings from ICQ channels, and since this is again a banking customer, the biggest use case for them is credit cards, and we are seeing how credit cards were captured with some of their previews. Another tab here is the pay sites. In pay sites, the pay sites were actually developed for people to share and store and share information, but like everything else, it's being abused by threat actors now as well. So in pay sites, you could find things for sale or data dumps or configuration files. And for this customer, we're actually observing a configuration file like finding some of their internal settings. So these are sensitive information, sometimes unintentionally forgotten, or in cases like this, intentionally put out by the threat actors. Let me show you one more example from the platform. Here we are seeing an example of an incident. So SOCRadar is an incident generating platform. You'll get email alerts, and the alerts are also stored in the system as well. So here we're seeing an example of a credit card for sale in Joker Stash Black Market, which is very famous for credit card exchanges. I will not spend too much time on here, but have a look at how you could see how much for this card is sold, the type of the card. Some cards are better than the others, so they are sold for a higher price. But it's really not too expensive to get a hold of a credit card for a fraudulent purchase. If you look to the right side, here it provides a detailed analysis of what was being found, what it was, and how you can take some mitigation action. I said final, but I do have 2 examples from the platform. So if you could move on to the next slide. So this platform is based on, this is the backbone of the platform. It's actually based on big data, as I mentioned. And that big data is offered to the clients for them to be able to make searches in actually dark and deep web. So they don't have to create accounts or leave their desks or get their hands dirty or risk exposing their identity. So look at the filter here. You can filter your searches by date. And here you can search any threat term or keywords or basically IOCs. I did one search in my next slide. I actually searched for a domain name, and it was a banking domain name, just regular, just out of the blue random example. One of the findings is from an IRC chat channel, and look at the things that were captured here: Netflix accounts for sale or credit cards from brands for sale. Down below is the Genesis Market example. You see how the screenshot is also available and the details of login links and when the data was captured. So these are very common findings in the dark web, and the platform allows you to, if you look at the right side, allows you to filter these findings by attack groups, software type, source, country, product, and other tags that you could be creating. So with that, I'd like to leave it to Ertuğrul for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Rashid. So key takeaways from today's talk. First, we need to have a prioritization plan based on the roles and the responsibilities in our SOC team to be quick and effective, since there is massive data and threats we are talking about. And second, to prevent data exposure risk, we would highly recommend to benefit from automation and big data technologies. Here again, with SOCRadar's threat host that Rashid just walked you through, you can search deep and dark web sources in an isolated environment, and do not ignore any data exposures. And it's relevant to mention that while monitoring the deep and dark web, searching for your brand name would not be the most sufficient way, since threat actors often doesn't share the company name publicly. So instead they mention the name of the industry, or in our presentation we mentioned the revenue of the company, sometimes the number of employees or operating countries. So before I hand it back over to Azra, I wish everyone joined well. We are very much appreciated in these different and difficult times. Thank you. Azra, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, thank you, Rashid and Ertuğrul. That was a very great presentation. Now, seeing that the time is almost up, I think we can answer only one or two questions, maybe. The first question goes to you, Ertuğrul. A viewer is asking, what is the best way to monitor the instant messaging applications, as you mentioned in the presentation?
Yeah, actually very good question, as we just mentioned in the takeaways part also. So before I answer that question, I need to say at SOCRadar, we are continuously looking to identify which mobile platforms are gaining traction because it's dynamically changing, and which may be the future backbone of the illegal cyber economy. And I would recommend, before starting the monitoring, we need to first define the use cases, and exactly we need to define what you are looking for. It would be also helpful to understand why dark web communication is changing with mobile adoption, and how this impacts the TTPs in your industry. So then as SOC teams, we need to better resource and have the tools, technological tools to evolve with it, definitely. Then the technologies like AI and machine learning with automation can help, and that all these technologies actually we leverage in SOCRadar platform. And as a last note, this can actually create difference. So human intelligence, human services can create difference most of the time.
Okay, I think we can answer another question. Rashid, maybe you could take this one. One of the attendees is asking, how can we know if my credit card number information may be exposed on the dark internet or other hidden sites?
Ping me and I'll look it up. No, Not really. So actually, as an end user, you don't have a way of knowing that, except observing your transactions every month and make sure everything is in place. So that would be the best thing that you could do. But most probably, your banking organization have a service like ours that are actually keeping it out. And actually, if you ever had your credit card reset it without no explanation from your bank, you have been probably a victim of this. So as an end user, there are not many ways for you to verify that, but your bank will do that for you.
Okay, very quickly, there is another question. Maybe you can answer that one fast as well. How can we check if an email address is a malicious or fake email or phishing within SOCRadar?
Yeah, I would happily take this. So SOCRadar has a threat analysis module. There you can upload any file, or you can just write down a malicious link, and SOCRadar will get back to you with the analysis report of that specific link or suspicious link or the file.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. We're actually out of time, and that was for all the questions for now. For all of you who we couldn't answer the questions live, we can send you a follow-up email. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to email us, to all our attendees. And for those who attended late, at the beginning of the webinar, we mentioned that you can register to SOCRadar's Community Edition. The link is given here on the screen. You can also go to our website. Now, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Ertuğrul and Reshit, for the presentation. We'll follow up to all who registered for the webinar with a link to the recording. Now, everyone, have a great day or evening, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.